Hello, my name is Kate, and I'm here today to talk about the power of peer support. This is the first half of a two-part presentation sponsored by the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. And before I say anything else, there are a lot of thank yous that I need to share. First, to all the peer parents who've shared their work and shared their expertise, the parents, the family support specialists at the March of Dimes in the United States, the Vermont Oxford Network, the wonderful parents and clinicians who are part of the Family Integrated Care Trial here in Canada, Sue Robbins from the West Coast, who's been a peer and mentor and amazing friend, Katharina Staub, who founded the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation and who's been such a pioneer in peer support work here in Canada, Jack Hurrigan, who with Sway Partners, who is a graduate NICU mother herself and also an amazing teacher and peer mentor. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but the last but not least name on this list has to be Marianne Bracht and all of her amazing team at Mount Sinai. They have been running a parent buddy program for about the last 30 years, and a lot of the material we're sharing with you as part of this recorded webinar was inspired by their work because they really do a fabulous job offering peer support to NICU families. So to all of those people, we say thank you. We know we stand on the shoulders of giants here. We are so grateful to you all for your generosity in sharing your work. So when we're talking about peer support, we want to talk about why we think it's so important and why we think it's a particular unique and vital resource for NICU parents. And so we're going to share the benefits, what we see as the benefits of peer support, and we're also going to give you opportunities we're going to be sharing best practices, but also talking about skill development. And there will actually be moments where you can pause the presentation and practice and develop skills together with somebody. So we would recommend that you watch this presentation with a buddy and practice these skills together so that you can debrief together and learn together. And I think that makes it a lot more fun. So if we're going to talk about peer support, let's first identify what we're talking about. The Self-Help Resource Association of BC, which is now PeerNet BC, defines peer support as people who share a common problem or a challenge, and they come together to learn from each other and provide support. Peer support gives an opportunity to learn coping skills, new means to approach or improve personal situations. It's something that can be done one-on-one, in group settings, by telephone or online. What's important about it is the relationship, not really where it happens. And it's unique. It's a kind of support that one can only get from others who share similar experiences. And there's a huge growing body of evidence that shows that peer support is a very effective way of specifically of helping NICU parents manage the stress of hospitalization and discharge. And again, the team at Mount Sinai has done some really interesting work here. But they found that connecting with peer parents can help NICU families experience some relief by talking with people who understand, because sometimes friends and family don't understand what it's like to have a baby in the NICU. It helps current NICU families begin to deal with their own feelings about the experience. It helps them feel less isolated and less alone. It helps encourage people to start solving their own problems, find ways of coping. And it also helps people feel hope for the future, which I think is a profound and core benefit, one of the most important benefits of peer support. So let's talk about what a peer parent can be and what a peer parent doesn't have to be. Probably this first point is the most important. A peer parent is a listening ear. If all you do in your role as a peer parent is come and listen to somebody talk, that's 99% of what matters. And it's really, really important. Just being present and being with somebody who's going through a hard time, that is enough, and it's wonderful. You can also be a shoulder to cry on. You can be a valuable information resource. One thing that you have to stay aware of is that you do the listening first and you share the information later. Sometimes we're so eager to share all the information that's been a benefit to us that we don't take time to listen and hear what the current NICU parent really needs. But it is absolutely true that a peer parent can share really important information. We are a source of realistic optimism and hope. And I specify realistic optimism because, as we're going to find out later in the presentation, we have to be very careful about always being honest about what we can say and what we can't say, and focusing on realistic optimism as opposed to false hope. But in that we are there and present and that we've been through it, we can be kind of a light at the end of the tunnel to current NICU parents, and that's very valuable. We are safe. We are safe people for someone in crisis. We don't represent authority. We don't have more power than the person that we're trying to connect with. And so that can help us connect with them and help them feel safe and help them feel confident that they can share with us, that they can be understood, that they won't be criticized. And we are part of a support system. And I think this is really important when you're going in, especially if you're volunteering in a hospital or working in any kind of institution, that you're not alone, that there are people around you who can help when you're feeling a little bit out of your depth. You're just one part of a support system that's there to help that family. So let's turn to the other column. A peer parent is not a medical professional, and we're not there to offer any kind of medical advice. We're not a friend. And some people kind of raise their eyebrows at that, thinking that sounds kind of harsh. It's not meant to be harsh. It's meant to recognize that a friendship is a mutual relationship. So I give to a friend, but I also get from a friend. And in a peer-parent relationship, if I'm helping somebody else, I might get something out of the whole experience. It might be a very positive experience for me, but I'm not relying on that person. I'm giving to that person, I'm offering support to that person, and I'm not expecting support in return. And that's a pretty important distinction. I'm also not a financial resource. And again, this might seem pretty straightforward, and of course you wouldn't be offering money or practical sources of support to people. But it's hard when you're confronted with people who need, you're confronted with people who are lacking, and every part of your being is crying out, I just want to help this person. And it is hard to resist that. But it's important to remember that you need to keep this practice of being a peer parent sustainable for you. And again, going back to that other point, you're not alone. What you can be, you may not have to solve the problem yourself, you may not have to address the financial need yourself, but you could be a vital link to some organization or role who could address that need, like a social worker, for example. Not a psychologist or counselor. That's another really important distinction. Peer counseling is very different. Peer counseling is about listening and storytelling and reflection. It's not professional counseling. Now, as peer counselors, we might serve as a bridge to professional counseling. It's something that I certainly bring up with a lot of the families I work with, because I think getting counseling, getting psychological support is vital for a lot of NICU families. But that's not a service that I myself provide. I don't have those skills. As peer parents, we're not judges or critics. And this can be hard because you will run into people who are making decisions and you don't understand those decisions. They may not be the decisions that you yourself would have made or did make. But the thing is, it's not enough to feel the judgment and then hide it. Because if you're feeling judgmental about somebody, they know. That person knows. They can see it in your face. They can hear it in your voice. So it's really important to approach people with an open mind and to understand that everybody's doing the best job they can. And your job is to be there, listen to them and support them and help them do the best job possible with the resources that they have. And then this last point, and I'm just echoing again what I said before, but this is so important to understand. You're not alone in this work. You can connect with others for help, because if you feel like you have to solve every problem and address every need, this work will burn you out. You won't enjoy it. And you won't last in it. And it would be nice if this could be something that is sustainable and is an ongoing source of enjoyment for you. So remember that you're part of a team, and that one of the most beautiful things you can do for a parent who's in trouble is connect them with resources that can help them. So this quote about empathy, I think, is really lovely. And the elements that I want to emphasize about it are this line here: not only is empathy hard to outsource and automate, but it makes the world a better place. So empathy does make the world a better place, but it's so true that you can't automate it. There's no easy way to arrive at an empathic relationship. It takes time. You have to invest time into it. And we can create scripts, and we have, to some degree, created scripts, and we can create formulas for you and all that. But really, you have to invest the time in building relationships, because empathy is really rooted in respectful relationship with somebody else. Now, if we're talking about what peer parents need, what skills do you need in order to do this work? Really, communication skills, that's where it comes down to. It's everything. You need to be able to listen. That, as I said before, if that's all that you do, that's 99% of the job right there, and it's wonderful. So empathic listening is the ability to understand another person's ideas and feelings, and it's gaining an understanding through listening and then demonstrating that understanding by responding appropriately. And I really do think parents of NICU children have a unique capacity to listen and understand and communicate that understanding back to new parents of NICU babies. So the three elements in responding empathically are, first you identify the feeling, then you identify the situation, content, or the context, let's say, of the feeling, where and why is it happening, and then you respond to the situation and you show your understanding. So when you're doing this empathic listening, you really want to focus and give your undivided attention. For goodness sakes, please put away the cell phone. I get caught up with my phone as much as anybody, and it's something I've had to learn. Turn it off and put it away. Let people know if you don't understand what they're saying. Watch for nonverbal cues, very important. Body language is most of what people, that's really how we communicate, is through our bodies, so pay attention to that. And remember that just by listening and responding, you're helping people gain more self-understanding, and you're helping them solve their own problems. So even if in that moment you don't feel like you've done much, you may have initiated something that's going to help that person tomorrow or the next day or the next day. Now there are pitfalls. Not really paying attention, being distracted by your phone, being distracted by something else, responding inappropriately. So if somebody says something and it seems very serious and you kind of joke, you try and lighten the tone by joking, what you're telling them is that their feelings aren't appropriate. And they might end up not trusting you or not feeling safe with you. Being overly reassuring, I touched on that earlier. It's when somebody's in crisis and when somebody's worried about their baby, we all want them to feel better. But sometimes if we are overly assuring and reassuring, what we're doing is telling them that their feelings aren't appropriate, when in fact their feelings are totally appropriate. It is normal to worry about your baby in the NICU. It is very normal to worry about a sick baby. And to say that they shouldn't be worrying, it's not going to help them. And then this last point, doing all the talking yourself. Sometimes when people are struggling with difficult situations and big feelings, they don't know how to respond. They don't know what to say. This is all new to them. And sometimes, and I make this mistake all the time, we try and rush in because we're uncomfortable with the silence. And we try and tell them how they should feel, what they could say, what they could do. And the problem is that that's our discomfort with the silence. That's not their problem. And that if we can just hold the space for them and let them take their time, the people we're trying to help, the people we're there to support, they will come into the space. They will say what they need. And they'll say what they need. They won't give us some version of what we told them they should need. So I think this is a really, really important point. And it is really hard. It is really hard to sit in silence. It makes a lot of people feel very awkward. You can smile. You can offer some gentle prompts. But really getting comfortable with that silence and giving people permission to just sit and think things through and not rushing in to try and fill the spaces, I think it's a really important thing to be able to do as a peer parent. So, I'd said earlier that we don't really want to come up with formulas or scripts and that this isn't work that can be rushed. But there is this lovely example of the empathy formula that I learned from the wonderful people at Mount Sinai. Do you feel A because of B? So do you feel angry because you didn't get a full-term pregnancy? Do you feel stressed because your baby's in the hospital? Do you feel tired because you haven't slept in 4 days properly? Do you feel lonely because none of your friends and family understand anything about this NICU experience? So these are questions. If somebody's telling you something, and they might be telling you a very long, involved story, but you can help them isolate and identify their feelings by listening intently and then pulling out the feeling and the context, the why they're feeling that way. And when you do that, you help them begin to address these feelings and figure out what to do next. So a great way, if you're having a conversation with NICU families, or with an NICU family member, and you want to kind of keep things going, you want to kind of dig deeper with them, empathic responses and open-ended questions, these are wonderful tools. So what these help you do, it helps you reframe what they're saying. So they might give you a lot of data, and what you do with these comments and questions is you help them identify, kind of winnow down on what's really, really important. So what I hear you saying is a great way to start, and then you reframe their statements. Where would you like to begin? That can be a very positive way of starting a conversation that's action-oriented. Identifying, number 5 here, identifying the feeling. You sound a little frustrated or sad, and helping them identify that feeling and kind of own that feeling. That is a great way to initiate a deeper conversation. And then these last 2 points, number 9 and number 10, these came from Jack Horrigan, and I think these are both beautiful examples of questions that are very action-oriented in a positive way. It helps people, like sometimes when you're feeling completely helpless, the best thing you can do is just figure out one action that you can take, something that you can do in the moment that can propel you a little bit forward. It's not going to solve your whole problem, but it might do something. And for people who are feeling helpless, who are feeling, for example, like there's nothing they could do to help their baby, helping them identify one action they can take can be immensely powerful. So asking what's most important to you right now and helping people figure out an action in the moment they can take, or what would make tomorrow better? That's another beautiful question. If somebody's stuck in a bad place and maybe there isn't anything that they can do right away, maybe the problem is they're so exhausted and there's really nothing they can do, asking what would make tomorrow better, that can help prompt a positive discussion about getting some sleep, for example, getting a good meal, getting outside, walking in the sunshine, something like that. That sends the discussion in a positive direction, and it encourages people to take an action to help themselves. Now, what I'd like to do now is encourage you and a partner to do an exercise. So what we're going to do here is we have a list in the next slide. There's a list of some one-liners. These are all things that have been said by NICU families. I've probably said some of these things. If you're NICU parents, you've probably said some of these things. And so with your partner, one of you will be the current NICU parent and one of you will be the peer parent. And so the peer parent is going to listen to just that one line, identify the feeling, contextualize it, sort of try and figure out like why is this happening? And then use empathic responses and open-ended questions to move the discussion forward. So so start off with one of you being in each role and then go through the exercise and then switch so you each get a chance to do it from either side. And then when you're finished with that, so these are the examples here. And then when you're finished with that, you will be doing a debriefing. So with the exercise, just pick any one of these one-liners, something that resonates with you, something that I hear all the time. I feel like this is all my fault. That's something that I think pretty much every NICU parent has felt at some time. My family won't listen to the hospital rules. That's something that comes up a lot. But pick something that resonates with you. You don't have to do the same. You each can pick a different line to work on. In fact, that's probably better because it makes it a bit more interesting. And then once you've done the exercise, take a moment for reflection. That's really important. And the questions you want to ask, did you, when in your peer parent role, did it feel comfortable for you? If you were the person acting as the current NICU parent, did you feel listened to? And what made you feel listened to or not listened to? And for both of you, how did it feel? Did it feel comfortable? Is this something you want to practice some more? I would say that in these types of situations, practice it doesn't make perfect because conversation can never be perfect, but it makes it more comfortable. It makes it easier for you to initiate these conversations and keep them going. So don't feel bad about going through this maybe 3 or 4 times, taking different one-liners and practicing those so that you feel really comfortable listening to people's statements, drawing on their feelings, and moving the conversation forward with those open-ended questions. Now, this concludes the first half of this webinar. I encourage you to watch the second half where we're going to be talking about issues of confidentiality and working with institutions and some other really interesting themes related to peer support. But I thank you very much for your attention, and I welcome you in the other half of this presentation. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.